How's it going, everybody? Want to give everybody a quick thank you and a big appreciation for all the support that I've gotten lately on the channel. A lot of the feedback has been really positive. A lot of good questions coming across, stuff like that. So continue to do that. It definitely helps me out with everything that we do on the back end here. I have a couple of big announcements that are going to be coming here in the near future, which will be a surprise to a lot of people. I think there's a small group of people that I am much closer to in the internet world have had some influence on me as to some of the things that I'm doing here in the public space. So I'm not gonna leave any. I'm gonna kind of put that bug out there for you guys to think about and to start speculating on, because I know everybody in the internet world is gonna be like, "What's Rob doing?" It's all positive stuff. It's all good stuff. I'm in the process of figuring out some details as to how I'm going to move forward with the channel and stuff like that, because I felt like over the past 6 months to a year, it's been more or less me telling you how to do this and how to do that, and it's kind of lost its focus a little bit. So I'm uh, given that the given the recent um, uh, path that the channel has taken has made me change how I approach the YouTube aspect of things. So I've got some things in the works that I'm planning on having sometime in the first quarter of 2017 figured out and ready to go. And then once everything is in place, I will be doing a public announcement as to what that is and how it's going to work. So I'm extremely excited at how this is actually working out. This is what I'm working on is going to change the way that we do things here on YouTube and stuff like that, for at least my channel, not YouTube in general, but how I do things on the channel. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And I've actually gotten quite a few questions lately based off of the direction that the videos have taken. A lot of them have been, um, I do a lot more, you know, if you're trying to accomplish this goal, this is my approach to doing it. This is how I got certified. This is the direction I took. This is how I got to where I'm at. Things like that. A lot of certification-centric focus, stuff like that. And I still seem to get um, a lot of questions because um, a lot of the viewers that I have are non-English speaking, so English typically is not the first language that a lot of the viewers that I have watch are. Um, so I'm having to answer questions 2 and 3 times, which I'm fine with that. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make here is, as I move forward here, there's been specific questions that have been asked as of recently. One of those questions is, how do I know if I have gone through and learned enough for a specific test? And my answer to that is, so like for instance, one of the questions that I get a lot is, I have a CCNA level of understanding. I want to go to CCNP. I want to know how deep I should go in a particular protocol. Do I need to know everything about it? Or do I need to know or follow the blueprint? And sometimes the blueprints, as most of you should know, are vague in the majority of aspects as to what they want you to know. So a lot of times you don't know how far to go. And that goes with me too. You know, when I was studying for CCNP service provider, there was a lot of stuff that there was really no direction with how much you had to know. I knew more than I needed to, but that also played into the fact that I when I approach a new certification track, especially anything that covers topics that I'm already very familiar with, like CCNP, um, especially for like BGP and IGP and MPLS. Those are topics that I'm pretty familiar with. So having a CCIE in routing and switching definitely helps, because a lot of that foundational understanding is already there. So to answer the question, I kind of need to ask another question to you. So I'm going to give you my solution and then some food for thought. So what certification are you going for? Are you going for routing and switching, or are you going for service provider? Those are the two areas that I have the most amount of experience with in the certification track. Now, I don't have CCNA service provider. I don't need to take that because the fact that I've got a CCIE in another track, and I'm not sure if you knew that or not, but if you have a CCIE in any track, or CCDE, I believe also comes into play, but I don't quote me on that one. CCIE, I know for sure that if you have a CCIE in any track, you can go and take and bypass the CCNA level exams and go right for CCNP. So if you were to do that and then go past the CCNP exams that are required of you to make, for service provider there were 4, route, advanced route, core, and edge. I went out and I passed all 4 exams, and I was able to come back and the day that I passed core and edge, because I took both exams in the same day, I was able to go through and um, I got the notification late that night. I forget what day I took it on. It's been a couple of weeks now. And I was able to, Cisco granted me the credential CCNP service provider. So you don't have to start out with CCNA, although I did. You know, I went through, and that's one of the things I recommend you do is if you're starting a new track, start at CCNA and work your way through. That's just my approach. Now, when you're studying for when you're studying for the credential on the blueprint, read the blueprint, right? And then normally what I will do is you have to look at the exam you're taking. Well, CCNP is mostly written. The service provider exams were all written. There was no labs at all in the blueprint. So I didn't have to go in there and configure a writing protocol. They were all written questions, which I thought it made it kind of easy. There were a lot of times where, as I was going through the exams, I would get questions on a particular topic, and sometimes the questions were a little more difficult than others, but it didn't require me to click on a console and type in commands. When I took CCNP routing and switching, I did have to configure things, which no big deal. I was able to successfully navigate all 3 exams and pass them, get my CCNP. So having taken the service provider side, I suspect the reason they do it that way is because of the fact that it's not the service provider track is not as popular as the others, so there probably isn't as much effort put into the exams as, like, say, security or data center or routing and switching or, say, collaboration. So I have not taken anything outside of route switch or service provider, so I can't speak on those. Once I'm done with service provider, I'm likely going to go the route of data center and likely the route of network virtualization with VMware, so NSX. So those are the 2 paths I'm probably going to take afterwards. Probably going to go NSX with VMware before I do data center. Just there's a lot of overlap, but it's hard for me to give you a guideline. And the reason I say that is because it's one of those things where if I'm going to be going through and studying for something, I tend to over prepare, and for good reason. These exams are not easy, never have been. If you don't put the time and effort in to prepare, you're going to have a difficult time taking the test and being successful with it. So there's really no way to really gauge it, but what I can tell you is this. If you're studying for a CCNA level exam, they're going to be a bit more specific because CCNAs historically need to be told what to do. And that's just job-centric things as well. Now, and the reason I say it the way that I do is normally CCNA is an entry-level certification. Now, I do work with people that have a CCNA that have 20 years of experience. They just have kept their CCNA and never have moved on. So you can't directly correlate the certification to an experience level. The 2 are not mutually, they don't mean the same thing. So they're mutually exclusive. I have a CCIE and I'm working on my second right now. I'm spending, if you've been following my blog, theriker.blogspot.com, you have more than likely seen a significant increase in the amount of posts that I've been doing. And the reason for that is I've been going through and reading my buddy Nick's CCIE Service Provider Comprehensive Guide, and I've been doing labbing as I go. So he does a lot of the heavy lifting already. So I just go through, I read the book, and I go back and I read the documentation to fill in any gaps. And then I go and I lab. There's been a couple things where I've added in details where he didn't, which, you know, to each their own. One author will do certain things to a certain level, and others, authors like myself, will do it to a different level. So normally the way that I gauge a CCNP is, and this is the most common one that I get questions on, how do I know how deep to go? Well, that's the thing, it's hard to say. What I would say is, I would, like, for instance, and the reason, that's one of the reasons why I have the console pulled up, and here I've got R13 here. Let me go, R13 is running EIGRP. So if we were to come in here and go to global config and type in router do show run section EIGRP. EIGRP1. So router EIGRP1. Okay, now here's the first level of how deep do I gotta go? Question mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring this down. So what I would recommend for anybody that's doing CCNP is to go and grab the configuration guide and the command reference. So where do you find those? Well, you find both of those on Cisco's website, and I have gone through and I have bookmarked all of these just for the fact that I am OCD when I come to learning. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull up the 15.5 configuration guide and the 15.5 command reference. I'm going to pull these both over. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the EIGRP configuration guide and the EIGRP command reference. Okay, and the reason why I grabbed them individually is because of what you need to know. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this guy. This is the configuration guide, and then we also have the command reference. Okay, so first of all, the configuration guide. The configuration guide is going to help you know what you need to do. So if I was you, this is probably going to take you a while to read through. I read this entire book as I was studying for CCNA, routing and switching, and it definitely does help. There's a few things in here I left out, like LFA and things like that were outside of the scope, but I'm going to be going back and reading them in more detail. There's some other things like OTP that I'm going to have to go through, and EIGRP support for 6PE and 6VPE, things I'm going to go back and read. IWAN simplification, there's, like I said, there's some things that I left out on purpose. So read through this. I don't know how deep they're going to ask questions on, and I find that the blueprints are very vague for CCNP and CCIE. You know, that's just the nature of the beast with those exams. Typically, when you're going for a CCNA or CCNP or CCIE, you're considered to be a senior level engineer or mid to senior level in your organization. And what that basically means is you're not having to be told what to do all day long. You're given a list of projects, and you are going through this list of projects, and on a regular basis you are hitting these projects and trying to drive them towards completion. That's typically what a senior level engineer is doing. I normally don't have my boss stopping by my desk and saying, "Hey Rob, how's it going?" You know, he'll stop by and he'll ask questions, and I'll get redirected this way or that way. But on a regular basis, I'm in meetings with my manager and my other colleagues in my current position, and we're talking about things. I have no problem stopping by. There's some gentlemen that I work with that have been with the company that I'm currently with for several years. And I stop by their desk and say, "Hey, I'm looking at this. I don't quite understand how it's working. Can you kind of give me some back history and help me understand it?" And both of the guys have been nothing but helpful when it comes to trying to help me understand this. Because one thing that you'll realize is once you get to CCNP and CCIE, you have a much higher level of humility that comes with that role, and you don't act like you know everything. Because even though I know the technology really well, I don't know how it's implemented in every environment. And you never will. So I take the table of contents here, and I'm able to go through and I'm able to read through all this stuff here to get an idea as to what all of this is. Now I take this right here, I take this show command here, this question mark, and I'm able to dig into each one of these. So that I could take, for instance, auto summary. If I don't know what auto summary does, I know what it means. But if you can see here, auto summary isn't a specific bullet point in the table of contents for the book. So I can go here to the command reference, and I can click on the index, which gives me a list of all the commands inside of EIGRP, and I can go through here and I can, normally you can do a control find, so I can type in auto summary, auto-summary. So there it is. So I have one there, so I can click on auto summary, and it takes me to this. So what it's going to do is it's going to take auto summary to allow automatic summarization of subnet routes into network level routes. So this is what it's doing, and you're like, okay, that's not very specific. So then you can scroll down here to the usage guidelines and say, to allow the software to create summary subprefixes to the classable network boundary when crossing classable network boundaries. EIGRP summary routes are given an administrative distance of 5. You cannot configure this value. So what I can do is I can come in here and it says router EIGRP 1 or 109 and then auto summary. And if I go here and I type in, this is for named mode if you're going to use that, you can go to topology base and type in auto summary. That's going to give me that flexibility of configuring a auto summary. So normally in 15.0 code, this let's see here. Right here in 15.0, this command was modified. Address family topology configuration mode was added, which is that named mode capability. The default behavior is changed to disabled. So they do this on purpose because they don't want you to have to type in no auto. But that's an example of how you would go through there. So if you don't know what something is as you're going through your preparation, I would recommend you look at the configuration guide and download the command reference. I have actually got all these downloaded. It's just a matter of me going through and making sure that I know what I've got going on and how to go about doing it. So that's usually how I go about preparing for stuff. So then I can go through here and then I can go and say, okay, well, I know what each one of these does. So from a high level, grab the definition, grab what it is, how it works, why you would use it, where you would use it, and things like that. Answer those questions. And if you go through all these here and then all the subcommands, so if I type in auto summary question mark, there's nothing below that I can type in. Now if I type in address family question mark, I can go IPv4 and I can type in unicast and then VRF, and if I have a VR configured, which I don't at the moment, I would expand each one of these. So for instance, you could do summary metric. Summary metric is going to be for a specific summary you can send out, and then the metric that you want to apply to that. And that's going to be one of those things where it's going to come in handy to help you figure it out. For CCNP, I would make the recommendation to all of you to go through here and know what each one of these is. That's what I would do. Know what each one of these is, because you never know what they're going to test you on. Now CCIE, I would not only know what each one of these is, but I would have tested each one of the configuration options out and know the result of what you're trying to get to. So what that means is configure each one of these and know what the outputs look like and the use case for each one of them. Now, a lot of the stuff that I've produced in the past for stuff like that will come in handy, and that's what I recommend you do is you take a look at everything that's in the network and you play with the different features of the technology in different areas so you can see how they interoperate. So that's what I would recommend you do. Now this is named mode. If I was type in, or sorry, this is classic mode, router EIGRP1. If I was type in router EIGRP SP and type in address family, IPv4, unicast, autonomous system, say 10, and I was to come in here and type in, I'm at the address family part now, so I can go in here and start getting more specific. You'll notice that the level of configuration or configuration options goes down. Now if I was to go to say topology base, I get way more options. So a lot of my topology specific commands are under here. If I exit out of here and I type in AF interface, and I type in, we'll say, gig 1.900, gig 2.900, sorry. I have a bunch of interface specific configurations. So what they're doing with EIGRP is very similar to what iOS XR does. iOS XR puts all the configuration options underneath the global process. So if you want to configure an interface level command, you have to go underneath the interface to do that. Where in regular EIGRP in iOS, you have to go to the interface to type in the command, like authentication or the bandwidth percent and things like that. So that's what I would do. I would go through and I would know what each one of the sub features is, expand them out, know what they are, and I would test them out high level. Test out 1 or 2 feature options or whatnot. So typically what I do is if I'm going to go from CCNA to CCNP, I take it to the next level. I always go deeper than what I'm going to get tested on, and this way here I'm basically preventing myself from getting in a position that I don't know the answer. Now, that you can choose to do that however you want to go, but that's just my recommendation. So beyond that, that's pretty much what I would recommend. You can do it however you'd like, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to make sure that you have spent the time to go through and make sure you know what you're talking about and how it works. So beyond that, folks, that is pretty much all I can offer you for guidance and things like that. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a line in the comments below. And until next time, you guys take it easy.